Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Schaefer of Growing Bolder. This Stay Informed, Stay Connected Newsmaker interview is brought to you by the caring and helpful people at Florida Blue Medicare. Now, how about this? For the first time ever in this country, there are more people alive over the age of 60 than under the age of 18. Think about that. It's just not going to work anymore to marginalize older people. In fact, the opposite. It's critical to all of our futures that we work together to solve problems. Wisdom and knowledge will combine with energy and ambition to take complicated issues and come up with solutions and make life better for all of us. Now, there's a group out there called Encore that's been working to make connections between the generations, and they've had some pretty remarkable results so far. Joining us now is Corita Brown. Corita is the Director of Innovation and Learning at Encore.org. Welcome, Corita. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, hanging in. How are you doing?
Yeah, you're in Philadelphia, huh?
I am in Philly, yes.
And are things looking a little bit better there as they are in Florida?
I think that it, still remains to be seen that people are doing, I think, at least in my neighborhood, a really good job of looking out for each other and for their neighbors, staying at home, wearing masks. So I've really appreciated that. There's still been a lot of real community connection, even as people are socially distant.
Well, you said the magic words to lead into what our conversation today is going to be about: community connection, because really that's key to what you're doing as well. Because, you hear a lot on the news, you hear this big emboldened voice come up and talk about the aging of America. And it's kind of always said with the same inflection that you would hear the announcer say when they're talking about the latest horror film that's coming out. Like, what are we going to do about this big problem of the aging of America? You don't see it that way. Why not?
Right. Well, I think that I often talk about this growing aging population that we have as a solution hidden in plain sight. That, as you mentioned, we have more people than we've ever had in the history of this country who are older adults over 50, and that number is only growing. And I see that as an incredible resource and opportunity for building connections across generations, for creating supports for people of all ages, and really helping to bridge many of the historic divides that we have in our country.
That's awesome, and that is exciting, and the potential is there. There's no question about it. And when you think about it, every single generation of older teens or young adults, they always feel that they're misunderstood. Oh, the older people don't understand us. They look down on us. They think we're less capable. Isn't it more true that that's the way they look at older people?
I actually wouldn't say that it's kind of one or the other. I think that there are both generations that have stereotypes or misconceptions of each other, but there also is, I think, a tremendous history that we have of connecting generationally. And I often think about kind of what it would be like to take back somebody talked about this, I can't remember who it was, as progressive nostalgia, that we don't want to go back to how things were a number of years ago, because there were a lot of things about that time that were not great, but there were some elements that were very powerful. And one of them was the connection that people had across generations. People often lived close by to their relatives, were more connected in multi-generational households. And I think that that's a way that we can begin to look back to what was really meaningful and useful and generative about that time and bring that into our current situation.
Interesting, Corita, because I think in order to get back to that, we need an organization that can kind of make that connection, that can build that bridge. And I'm guessing that's what Encore.org is all about. So what do you do? How do you do that?
Sure. Well, Encore really was founded on this belief that aging really is not this problem that we need to have to be solved, that it's really an opportunity to be seized. And so what we've been doing over the last 20 years, we've worked, in a number of different ways to really be changing the cultural expectations about what it's like to be somebody 50 and older, and to really spark a movement around this, what we're calling a second act. But now Encore's kind of in their own second act, and we're really looking at this idea around intergenerational connection and how it can be used to help us do so many things in our world, to be solving problems, to be bridging divides, to really be bringing joy and meaning to the second half of life and helping all of us in this country to thrive. And so we've really begun to focus our work very explicitly on these types of intergenerational solutions.
Boy, you said something very powerful, that aging is not a problem to be solved. It is an opportunity to be seized. Man, if we could just make that foremost in our minds, we could make a lot of big changes. And it's one of those things that sounds fantastic in theory. But what's it really like out there? Are there success stories from Encore.org that we should know about?
Sure. Well, one of the things that has been very powerful has been our work in collaboration with cities around the country. In particular, we've been working closely with the city of San Jose, and they have been looking at the ways in which aging can be an opportunity to be seized across the city. So in many community hubs that we have in cities all around the country, like community centers, libraries, these public spaces that have tremendous potential to be connecting and bridging divides across generations. But often, even though everybody is in those spaces, they're all spending time separately. And so they've been testing and experimenting with a lot of new approaches to be intentionally bringing together the generations in these local community hubs, and with really powerful results that have been, I think, a beacon or an example across the country.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't think anyone doubts that there can be very strong connections and they can affect change both directions. And it just takes an organization like yours to be the ones to help make that start. It's like lighting a spark to a flame. I know that you're determined to mobilize people to get involved and to help create those connections. How does that work?
Sure. Well, I think that in part, I would say one thing that I'm thinking a lot about now in terms of this time during COVID is that it's really bringing into relief several things. One is that people need connection. That was true before COVID, but I think that that's bringing to the surface how powerful and how necessary relationship and connection is, and particularly for groups that are at different ends of the spectrum. Younger and older people are some of the folks that are grappling in some of the most powerful ways with social isolation and loneliness. And so there is a lot that needs to happen in terms of innovation, new thinking, experimentation in order to really grow and expand this kind of work. So one of the things that Encore is doing is really looking to support innovators and social entrepreneurs who are looking to develop new scalable solutions for bringing together the generations. And in particular, how to do that in a world during and post-COVID. And so we're actually in the midst of opening a new fellowship called the Gen to Gen Innovation Fellowship. That's going to be it's really a call to some of our nation's most talented innovators to scale and create intergenerational solutions. It's fascinating because this is a long overdue thing to happen. You know, it's a wasted resource. There are too many people that have too much experience out there that's not being put to use. And you brought up a great point about the pandemic, almost adjusting, I don't want to say just major changes, but adjusting the way that we see society. Have you had to rethink some things and change direction in any way because of what's been going on over the last 8 weeks? Yeah, a lot of what we're doing is really functioning as a resource and a hub for local leaders and organizations around the country. And we have been seeing both tremendous challenges that intergenerational programs and organizations are facing, and also tremendous adaptation and ability to pivot and be creative. So, you know, many of the intergenerational programs that currently exist are based on a relational in-person model. So many of them have had to close and are facing real financial hardship. But we are seeing just an extraordinary outpouring of creativity around organizations that are thinking about how to adapt in this time, which includes creating virtual mentoring opportunities, which involves pivoting to new opportunities for older adults to get engaged in virtual ways through virtual organizing and advocacy, to engaging young people to be connecting via some old school mechanisms like pen pals and phone calls to connect with older adults to maintain those intergenerational connections at a community level.
I'm guessing too, Corita, a big part of your job is breaking through misconceptions. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that you have to fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's been so interesting, I think, during COVID because there is a real valid concern that there are older adults who are frail and they are vulnerable. But I think one of the challenges is that people are running in to create opportunities to support these older people without really engaging older adults as part of the solution and part of the design. And so I think that that is really hampering the ability to create creative, innovative programs if the people who they are affecting are not at the table as part of the co-creators and designers. So that's one thing. I would say that another misconception is that older people are all frail and vulnerable. That while that is a population that is really facing a tremendous amount of challenges right now, there are also older adults who are coming out of retirement to volunteer as doctors and nurses in hospitals. There are older adults who are doing tremendous virtual volunteer work. And we have Anthony Fauci himself, who's 80 years old. So I think there's a lot of models of what older people are experiencing during the face of COVID, and that we really need to understand the breadth of that experience.
It's a great point. There are more 80-year-old marathon runners than ever. There are also more people over 60 facing illnesses and challenges as well. So you cannot paint with one color on this. It's there's all different people in all demographics. So do you have one takeaway, one final thought, a message that you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of talk about the economic stimulus that needs to happen to maintain and revitalize our economy. But there also is critical work needing to be done around a social stimulus, that the type of loneliness and disconnection that we were experiencing before COVID has only been thrown into stronger relief. And I think there are a lot of structural ways in which we can be helping create this social stimulus, whether that is creating a cabinet position in the federal government to address loneliness like they do in the UK, or to be building more supports for creating shared spaces for people of all generations to connect post-COVID, that there is real, intentional, meaningful work to be done to create this social stimulus that is equally important to the economic stimulus.
Boy, Corita, this is an excellent conversation and an excellent topic because it relates to anybody, no matter what age they are. Corita Brown is the Director of Innovation and Learning at Encore.org. Thank you for the great work that you're doing, and Growing Boulder is right there alongside of you, trying to help create some of that inspiration and help light the spark within people to live the best life possible. Folks, stay informed and stay connected. You'll find interviews like this and many, many more on a special webpage. It's a one-stop visit for tips, resources, and information. I urge you to check out growingbolder.com/COVID, and also on Facebook. Be sure to like Growing Bolder and Florida Blue Medicare for daily updates. For Growing Bolder, I'm Bill Schaefer. Thanks for watching.